Greetings and salutations. So I'm just about done. For the most part, I've gone through this entire thing. So I made a mistake early on, and I didn't realize that I had hardened steel blocks instead of steel blocks. And what's crazy is that the additional now the entire thing isn't steel blocks, but all the gaps that I filled in are steel blocks. So it's kind of a homogeny of both, like especially the undercarriage. The undercarriage is entirely steel blocks because I what I did is I created like these two rows and these two rows and then just doubled it and then doubled it and doubled it and doubled it and all the way down to give it that rib cage look. And part of that was to yeah, I see. I just missed something. So part of that is the way I wanted to set that up is when you have a flyby, I wanted it to give the impression of like running lights as you fly underneath it. And I could place lights, but I'm trying to keep the item count, the count low. And so by doing so, it reduces that material cost. And so that's kind of a big thing is getting that material cost, keeping it low. Now I'm going to have to do a little research and figure out what I need to convert. I know I watched on Jeff's channel. He did it on one or two of his YouTube videos where he did that, and I'm debating whether or not doing it because the nice thing I've figured out now, because there is a large group of steel blocks in here, there is an increased material cost, but on the other side of it, and there is an increase in CPU cost. But like when I go in here and I look at my main, I can this thing can run on a tier 2 CPU. It's just barely over when I look at the CPU, and if I bump, I didn't put any guns in it yet, and I'm not going to because I'm gonna try to keep it to where it can be spawned in as soon as possible early game, and I'll probably once I get everything, I redid the farms in here, and I kind of used this blue like I tried to make. I missed a spot. It never fails. You do a video and you do a video and that's when you start seeing all the stuff that you missed, and even though you've been through 30 times, like this, the perfect example. um, like I think what happens is when you spawn stuff in, some of it doesn't print or save. I think that's the issue is, I think that's a big proponent of what's going on. But so here's the grow. I got grow plots. Let's see what it says for grow plots. Goes to statistics. So right now it's at 4 hours to make. Now it's got 4,800 iron ingots. That now because I have this hardened steel in here, but look at these rare minerals: 94, 94, large optical bridge. See, once I go back down to a tier 2 CPU, that's going away. 108 grow plots. Wow, I was able to squeeze more in here. The other one I had 90. So there's enough because this is the old one. The I shouldn't say old. This is yes, this weekend's or last week's project. A little bit. It's got all the flare, a little bit more deck space, and then I guess I put these inner walkways, and because I did the inner walkways, it ate up some of my grow plot space. Um, and then kind of a this is the old kind of layout. And one of the things I wanted to do with this one is I wanted to kind of make it more industrial. I was trying to get that industrial vibe. Like if you're on your journey to Mars, you're just going to have to take so much stuff with you. And part of the design on this one is so my original concept behind this is I wanted these kind of like thruster bays, and I wanted to keep them empty. So that way, as I progressively kind of went through my game, my survival game, I could load up all the fuel tanks and all my oxygen tanks in here, or any thrusters as I modulated. And in here, I did the same thing, but this was double wide, and I was going to do a double thruster. But then I kind of realized that that's overkill, because on here I got in survival and I loaded them up with the fuel cells, and it still would take off. Even so, I was like, maybe that's a little overkill. And with this setup, if I need more thrust power, I can just add thrusters, more medium thrusters in a linear line like this, and still be able to amp up the thrust power. So it's not like I'm limited, because the issue that I had with the Pioneer is you don't have the ability to increase thrust because it's the such a unique design. It's hard to remodel and add another thruster off to the side. And then because of the grow plots, it's got a small. This was kind of like the limiting factor in its ability to scale with you. And then for the cargo, it's got the 224s, I believe it is. I meant to press F. Yeah, 224s. And so what I've done is I've done 232s, 320K. So I maxed them out. So apparently constructors only max out at 320Ks. But this one had taken a lot more design cues from the Pioneer. I kept the back here. I kept the railing around the side. I put a bay. You know, and I kind of tried to keep the same inside as the Pioneer because I liked it so much. And and then I had this open floor plan, and the front of this turned out really nice. I'm really happy with the front of this. And and then the bay, that was kind of my original concept. Is I wanted the other aspects is I wanted to enlarge my grow plots. So where did it go? Where did it go? It's up here. But with this one, and here I've moved a bunch of stuff around, and I really like how the bottom turned out. So as you do a flyby, it's like running lights. I mean, it is a little repetitive, but it does give that impression of like lots of electrical power and running lights, and as you come through here, uh, it's I didn't put as much as the deco stuff out because I don't want to when I spawn it in, I don't want to pay for that stuff. And the idea is I'm gonna collect that stuff up in game and place it, and then I changed the meta bay around a little bit. I haven't done the lines on the floor yet, but I kept the same warp drive, same thing, and I kept the same. Use the new tiles here on the side for the rounded curves to kind of bring it in. Um, but I really like this industrial, and I've cleaned it up, and I've added a bunch more modularity to this as well. So that way, I'm able to just stack up like I have these fuel tanks. I'm able to just exponentially. I could put like 40 of these things in here if I wanted, all through here, and then like up here as well. I can stick them up here. I can do two of them up there, and then two of them up there. Um, I can do two large fuel tanks there and a couple small ones. So as I go through my gameplay, I can just collect all this stuff up and then place it out, and then gradually increase the volume because with these with a rig like this, you're going to need to have larger oxygen. And I put A/T for either or. You can have your fuel tanks, or you can have your oxygen tanks in there. And then I left the repair station, but I didn't put a repair bay. And reason being is when you go through the single player games, you come across a lot of repair bays, but not the stations. And so when I craft the ship, the idea is I'll craft it with the repair station in stock. So as I find the bays and the POIs, I can just upgrade and through that process. And then also I put these little lights here because these are supposed to be like protection light or railway lights, kind of to help. So I really like the design and patterns that have um, the fluorescent lights in them, kind of the textures, because the textures really bring this thing to life. If I were to not have any textures on this thing, it would be super sterile. But um, all of these things that have little LED lights in them and color and texture really make this thing pop. Um, so yeah, this is where I'm at. It's the second version. What I like about this is it seems a little bit more nimble. If I compare the two, I don't know if it gives me a block count in here, but the it says size 3.06, and let's see what this is. P 3.37. So I was able to keep all the same functionality, but just kind of bring down the size. Let me see what this is. Bring down the size quite a bit, and my goal was to keep it at like 3 and under, because another one at UC class size 1.89. This is actually much smaller than I thought it was. But it's such a modular vehicle. I mean, it really is. A great vehicle as far as the starter process goes. And here, let me put some texture in here. The way I made these symbols, always try to label the stuff, so that way you know where to put it when you make it. That way like guns go there. That's where guns go. And there, guns go there. And I'm gonna have to figure out, because on this armament I got quite an arsenal on here. Like, it's got 4 rockets and 4 lasers. And on here, what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do 2 lasers and 4 rockets. I think I'm gonna do 4 rockets and 2 lasers, because lasers are really just for just burning down shields. Um, but really, I try to keep the whole idea behind this is the specialty vehicles. Um, because like you have your specialty tank and your specialty, and that's another reason for wanting this, is because with the Pioneer, you're kind of limited on deck space. And I wanted something with a little bit bigger deck space, but your own, the option is your segues. It goes from Pioneer, and then it segues up to the Drapper, okay, which is this, right? And this is fantastic. A couple of the issues though with this is, I say fantastic, but no, but it really is like, but because it's a runway design though, some of your stuff is kind of linear and spread out. And I guess one advantage of the box setup is that it's, you're less running back and forth, and it's a little bit more modular. But I just had an idea though, like it's not big enough to justify an LED, but maybe I should do an LED like this, because you got to have LED over here to for the elevators, um, engine room, farm medical. I really like that. Man, what a great job! What a great job. And I've tried to keep the texturing. Look at all those giant thrusters, 4x4 thrusters. Man, really, the scale of this, and is something else. But that's kind of the issue though. Is this is your segue. I don't think there's really anything else that segues um, between the two, and I kind of needed something that segued between the two. That it wasn't an armament issue. It was grow plots and whatnot. So that's why I came up with these two. And you know, it's the inspiration was definitely the Pioneer, and I tried to keep the same theme and the same process and everything as the Pioneer, and just get it to where it's these are supposed to be like running lights. That's what those are supposed to be, is like running lights. And you can see where it's got the boost, and I got so here's something I left empty, and I need to close it up. And the reason being is oh, did not mean to do that, and undo. The reason being is because wasn't sure if I wanted to add more thrusters. Like, I wasn't sure what I was going to need for thrusters, and so there you go. And then let's go back to texture. There we go. But and so another thing in here is I left the yellow stripe that goes down the center, so that way when you're placing stuff, it helps manage your center of gravity, and that way it's easy to place thrusters or tanks where you need to kind of as a grid reference system in order to manage your weight a little bit. And the weight on this, if I go in and go to debug, if I go center mass, the weights on this is pretty decent. It's a little, I think I don't know which one's which. I don't know if the turquoise is or the baby blue. I'm assuming the yellow is the center, and the blue is the mass. But when I tested this out, though, the issue that I had, let me find something heavy. The issue that I had was, let me see, energy mass 3.5, mass 13 tons, mass 2. I don't know. Let's see if there's anything that's in here like mass blocks, combat, growing plots, mass 2.6, mass 2, mass 1, mass 4, 3.4, mass 2. I think the heaviest thing I have in here is generators. So like the big generator is a mass of 40. Okay, let's do this. Let's just do this for testing purposes. So the weird thing is when I load these things up in the back, these things are ginormous, right? I'm loading these things on the back. See how it pulls? Well, how it pulls the center of gravity way up high. But it is also pulling it more towards the center though. So it's saying that it's top heavy. So if I did this, right? Let's just say I just stacked these things. I'm trying to figure out what I need to get this thing kind of centered. So like now the mass is kind of over the center, right? It's saying that the mass is over the center, but it's too high. So I don't quite get the logic of that. I don't quite get. Maybe I'm reading that wrong. Maybe it's saying maybe the blue line is. I don't know. Let me pull all this stuff off. I gotta be careful I don't delete stuff. But yeah, and you can see how you can see now it's kind of centered. Like that's good there. Well, though it's definitely I'm on the blue axis. I'm a little low, but yeah, I was trying to figure out what I needed to do to get this thing to where I was pulling weight in the right direction. That seems to make it worse. That seems to be, yeah, see, that's shooting it way out. Is it? Yeah. So even if I try to fix it, it's wow, it's crazy. Even if I try to fix it, put weight at different places, it gets worse. And so I don't really know. I think there needs developers probably need to come out with a comprehensive YouTube video that explains that mechanic. Since they're developing it and they're using. Let's see if I just do this. I know this has kind of gotten off the topic here. Okay, that pulled. Oh, look at that! That pulled the mass the other way. Okay, so that did help me. See, that pulled it way in the front. Wow. Okay. Okay, let's see what this does. Okay, so I think I'm only about 20 cuz these weigh about 40 tons. I think I'm only about 20 tons off if that. I think I'm only about 20 cuz see how it just popped? It's not that far off. I think I'm only about I wish there was some indicator like you could mouse over and it'd be like, "Oh, you're 17.5. Oh, you're 14.2." Like but it's not that bad. It's pretty good. And then when you get into the debug also on the oxygen, uh right? You can see everything is been debugged. And initially the grow plots were having some issues, but I figured out what it was. One of these little ceiling panels right here needed to be altered a little bit, and then but yeah, you can see like those hatches are kind of like a little compromise spot. They seep a little oxygen. Um, yeah, yep. They seep a little oxygen right there. It's because that's so thin. And but that's hardened. I put hardened steel there to no, that's regular steel. 344 hit points. 344 hit points. I could probably swap these out for hardened steel, and that would give me um, for those areas that are kind of thin. But you don't really need it because once you get shields going, you don't really need that. Let me show you how it flies, and get rid of the debug. Okay, get rid of the center of mass. Um, so I went light on the thrusters. I could have. Oh, here's something else I did. On the Pioneer, they're overall on the far wall. I pulled them off and I moved them here because usually what happens is you get out and you're like, oh, POI, and you run down and you look over and you're like, oh, my thrusters are on, and then you run back in and click click. So I kind of moved them around and changed them to where they're a little bit more easier to get to when you're getting out of the ship. Because that's what happens is you run all the way out and then you realize that you left them on. Um, so flying, little video. Okay, so this it's got a speed of 60, so it flies okay, right? If you turn into it, it turns much sharper. I mean, it's a box. It's definitely a box, right? Um, and so something else too is is because of the ramp and the way that I did the thruster holes. Let me find a flat spot. Um, there's something that you kind of got to be aware of when you land because the landing gear is in the. See, there's like a. Okay, So the landing gear is in the thruster pods, right? And so you can see that the landing gear down. So it's landed, it's docked, but it's flush. And so where you'll kind of run into some issues, and it only applies when you're landing, when you're trying to dock to something big, um, or if you're trying to dock to a space station. But really, this thing is big enough to where you don't you don't really dock to anything, so it's you don't in some aspects you don't need to. Yeah, all of these are down. So let's see over here. Yep, it's down. But you'll know that it won't actually be landed or docked when you come through here and you can see that the landing gear are up. But the issue that I had though is, so go G. Whoa, that is so weird. It like catapulted me, right? So the issue that I had is initially I had them underneath, but the issue that you run into is trying to get that ramp to work correctly, and you can't get that ramp to work correctly. I tried. I cut all this out. I moved it around. I tried 20 to use the bigger ramps. I used the side ramp. I mean, just whatever I could do to try to get that to where it sat one lower. And after about 20 iterations, I was like, okay, I guess I need to find another solution when it comes up to when it comes to getting the ramp right, because um, it's a fairly large vehicle. It's a fairly it's probably 30% bigger, and I know these sides. I could probably put some little pods or some deco stuff, but it's just supposed to be sleek, and then everything the sizing is right. For the ramp, I maintain the right sizing so you can drive a hover vehicle in there. And let me do that real quick and show you. I'll just spawn something real quick, right? Just so for some perspective. Um, Let me find blueprints. Let me find. Um, there was this one right here I found on the workshop, and I like this thing a lot. It's got a lot. One, two, three, four, five, six turrets, but then it's got this little docking thing underneath it, um, right? And then it's got the two-seater, okay? And so you can actually see out of it, which I was super impressed. And I think this thing is actually kind of dated because I noticed that the windshields weren't armored. And if I hit P, it's got a shield, right? It's got a shield, and it's using 60,000, so it has room to upgrade. See, so just got to aim up a little bit, or I can thrust her up. All right, I just have to thrust her up when I. There you go, and then I can thrust her down. Right, and then just hit V, or not V, F. Right, you heard it dock, and so it's docked in here, and I got plenty of room. I really like how they've done this. That's something I haven't gotten my head wrapped around. Is the and then it's got the salvaging, the multi-tool on the back tucked away in there as well. And let's see what it feels like to take off with that thing. And that's kind of where I want to go with this. No issues. Oh, yeah, no issues. And I'm not even using the big thruster. Let's see. Let me turn the other thrusters on and see how that feels. Okay, let's turn the other. Right, and so it actually took me a little bit of time to get this. Now that's the other set of thrusters to get that dialed in right. Getting the. Oh, yeah, I could tell a difference. I could definitely tell a difference. But the nice thing with this design, I mean, I could add 12 more. I could easily add 12 more thrusters. So when I get to some of those planets, let's try this. Let's do this. I could easily I don't know how high I am. Oh, I'm too high. I was gonna try to do. I've seen some really interesting things with LCD screens and how to. That might work. Let's try this. I've seen some really interesting things where they'll use LCD screens to project, right, and hit V, and I can hear the door open, right, and then oh, that's smooth. That's smooth. Okay, so let's see what this is like. Let's see if I can just mount underneath, right? Oh, not quite there. Not quite there. Okay, hit F. Okay, let me see if I can lower it. I'm just curious to see if I can dock. Okay, I just hit it. Okay, F. So the issue with this though is that it looks like it's docked. I don't think it is though. I think I have to. Yeah, I have to get in on the seat and tell it to dock. So the problem that you run into though is because this thing is so high, like there's no way to get into this thing. I'm in God mode right now, but there's no way to get into this thing. Yeah, I would have to engineer this to where this that the back there was like a cubby hole underneath that I drove into, and then it would self dock. But that actually brings up a uh, a valid solution for storage containers, though. You know, Humvee or HV storage containers. I think that would be a good um, cargo solution. You know, put a seat in there and just make a giant storage container. Okay, let's see what this feels like. Okay. Wow. Okay. And then of course I'm gonna go. I got the still underneath. Let's see what this feels like. Okay. And then look at that. Oh wow. Nice and smooth. Oh, that's nice. This thing is actually pretty agile. Pretty agile. And then I think the issue with it though is it doesn't have lasers, and I don't think any of these are lasers. This is definitely kind of a perspective look of what it looks like from on the ground. I tried to keep the symmetry. You know, I tried to keep you know, and I can just keep adding thrusters if I need it. I don't really feel like I need it, and I don't want to get into the neodymium expense. Um, you know, but those bottom there, you can see how there's plenty of. Let me fix that. I see a spot. You never fail. You're always running through here, trying to um, fix little textures. Normally, I don't do solid textures like this. I break them up a little bit more, but this actually this actually kind of has a little bit of a purpose or a thought behind these. These are supposed to be like skid plates, you know. Um, and so I was really looking for this kind of like choppy when you do a flyby, when you have a flyby, kind of a perspective. I'll do a quick right, and you do a flyby real quick. I wanted this kind of running like, you know, that give kind of depth and scope. So I'm gonna do two versions of these. I'm gonna do one version that is the same, and I'm gonna do another version, which is I'm gonna take all the hardened steel out, and I'm gonna and see how much of a material cost that drops it. Um, I see something. I see something. I see something. Just little miss something, you know. Um, yeah. It's like you're always, you're always chasing it. You're always chasing it. You're always chasing. All right, there we go. Perfect. It's perfect. That did it. That did it. Okay. Let me land this, and I'm gonna save it. I need to do some. Normally I do a bunch of like planters and refrigerators in here, but like I was saying, I don't want to. I don't want to get. I want to keep the cost low. I want to keep the expense low, and then find all that stuff in the game world. And I want to put some LEDs in here or some lights in here, but I don't really know what I want to do with it yet. They need to add some more texturing. The texturing is what really, really makes this stuff pop. Like the texturing is it's like next level. Um, that's really where it's at. And the way that you just double click it, you just click, and maybe I'll do that on what do we got here. Um, I know this video is getting too long. You do this, okay, and I'll do this too. There, okay. That texturing, it's just that's where it's at. That's where it's at. I was just trying to find those right right kind of textures to make it look. There you go. There you go. To make it look like it belongs, like it's a part of the system or a part of the I wish they had more of these like running I'm trying to give it that kind of like wired or ducting look is the goal. Is that more oh, I don't know, I clicked on something. Oh, clipping to the floor. There we go. And then what I'll do is I'll do for the lights themselves, I'll just do I'll do the bolt. I'll do the yeah, that's what I want. Yeah, I'll just do that. Right? Just try to give it that like wired mainframe ducting, advanced hydroponics kind of vibe, with the limited resources, for a voxel game. But I probably have 15 hours into this thing. Yeah, I could probably say I got 15 hours. And what kind of helped me keep the time down, I got 35 in the other one. But what helped me keep the time down was just kind of reusing a lot of the shapes instead of trying to problem solve a lot of the shapes. What I'll do is I know I want to keep the front end. I know I want to keep the thruster holes, or I got to come up with a good name for that. The thruster carriers, and I'll know I want to keep those. I just know that it's like, you know what? I want to trim that down a little bit. I want to trim that down, and I want to get it to where it's a little thinner. And the idea behind, but I want to get into more logic though. I want to get my head wrapped around some of the logic. Okay, I'm gonna stop the video here. I'm gonna do a bunch of screenshots and get this thing. I couldn't do the back, so what I'm gonna do is this. I'm just gonna change it up, put something else there. I couldn't do the. I think I got them all. I think I got them all. I would like a texture that looked like rebar sticking through, and also like instead of um, one that looks like rust. Um, you know what I mean? So it actually goes where the numbers go, and so it overlays over the top, and it looks like I think I got them all. I think I got yeah. Wow, that really tied it in. That tied it in really good. And I need to do. I mean, I'd like to do something in here. No, that looks like doo doo. Yeah. See that just it's a lot of these are not really usable. They're not. Yeah. Yeah. It's not. It's just not. That kind of works. I don't want to get too gaudy. I don't want to get too. That kind of works. That kind of works. Yeah, that kind of works. Uh, that's rough. It looks. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That kind of works. I mean, it's not exactly what I'm looking for, but definitely the first time I've ever used this texture. Okay. You know, for something like a hydroponics or something, I'm kind of curious if the more plants you have or the more oxygen these are kind of like filtration units. The more oxygen air things that put out oxygen, I wonder if like the more of these things, if it actually increases the consumption of oxygen. I'm kind of curious how they come up with the how they come up with that. You know what? That's not that's not bad. Oh, here's one. Um, yeah, you kind of that's the deal is you just kind of keep going over it, keep going back and keep going over it, and just trying to um, just trying to kind of make things look like they belong. Um, get try to get the textures worked out. There we go. That's better. And kind of like bolts to line up and rivets to line up and you know I really like the new wall pieces they do. I try to incorporate them whenever I can. Um, yeah, but I think this, and at the end of these things, usually what I put is I put bushes. I put plants and bushes, and so when I take over the POIs and I put a core in there, I bring all those bushes and alien plants back to my base. And yeah, okay, I'm stopping the video. Thanks for watching.